guys, long time no see. It's definitely been a minute since I last made a video, but I'm finally here with you guys today to kind of talk about my birth story a little bit and share that with you guys. And of course I have our newest little baby with me. I don't know how well she's going to cooperate with me for this video, so let's hope that it goes well. Alright, so if you are new here, I was due to have a scheduled C-section actually on August the 12th. We did not make it to that day at all. I ended up actually having her on August the 8th. My water broke at home. I was getting up, I actually was supposed to work 12 to 9 that day. I was getting up out of bed and I felt just kind of like a gush. And at first I wasn't 100% convinced that it was my water that broke. When it broke with my son, it broke and it was all at once, it was forceful, and it did not stop. And this was not like that at all. It just broke. There was like a little bit of a trickle here and there at a time. So at first I wasn't entirely convinced that that's what it was, but I went ahead and I texted my boss anyway, told her, you know, I think that my water broke, we're gonna head to the hospital, we're gonna get it checked out, see if that's what it is. You know, I mean, we are pretty close to D-Day, so she said, you know, that's good, go ahead, go in, good luck with everything, if that's the case. They had a little party set up for me at work that day, because my last day was gonna be the 10th, so that Friday. So they had a party with pizza and cupcakes and everything that I actually ended up missing. But that's totally okay, because it was worth it in the end. But, so we went ahead, I got Lainey ready. Lainey was the only one that we had at the time. My son, TJ, he was actually with my mom and my grandma. They were all down at the beach in Delaware. It's kind of like a family trip that we take, typically everyone together every year. But this year I did not go just because I was so close to having her. If anything were to happen, I didn't want to be, you know, like 6-7 hours away from home at the beach having a baby. So he went down with them. Lainey stayed here with us just because she is so little. I didn't feel comfortable with her going down. Okay, she is already getting fussy. I knew that was going to happen. So I'm just going to hold her here with me for a little bit and she'll probably be a little bit more content. See if I can get through any more of this. Okay, so back to where I was. We went ahead, we got Lainey ready and everything. We took her over. My pap actually stayed at home, so we took her over there. We got her a bag set up for a couple of days with some pajamas, some clothes, all of that jazz. We took her and we dropped her off and we headed to the hospital. The hospital that I had her at is actually about a little over like an hour and 20 minutes away from our house. So we definitely had plenty of time. We didn't even, my water broke, I'd say around like 10:30 in the morning. We didn't even make it to the hospital until around like 11:40, 12 o'clock, something close to that range. But we got there and we got all set up, you know, I met the nurses, everything like that. The first thing that they did, they took my vitals, all of that stuff, and they did like this little swab test to make sure that it was my water that broke. And immediately, they said the test could take a couple of minutes. It showed up immediately and said, yeah, that was my water that had broken. So they went ahead and they talked to the doctor that was there for the day. The hospital that I delivered at has kind of like rotating doctors. So whoever's there is who's, you know, going to end up delivering your baby and everything. So they gave him a call. They started getting me prepped and everything. They brought me in. You have to scrub your body down with like these special cloths and stuff to kind of remove any bacteria and stuff like that because I was having a C-section. So they brought that in for me. I got all scrubbed down and stuff. They give you like this toothbrush with antibacterial like toothpaste. So I did all of that good stuff. They got me in the bed. They got my monitors and stuff on me to kind of, you don't want to eat my head. That's nasty. That's nasty. You don't want to do that. That's yucky. They got my monitors and everything hooked up to me just to monitor my contractions and things like that, which I was having. They weren't too bad, they weren't that painful, so they said, you know, we're just gonna wait, we'll get the room and everything prepped for you. But I was only, whenever I got there, I was only still like 1.5 centimeters dilated, so it wasn't a big deal. Nothing was progressing super quickly. We actually didn't end up getting back in the OR for a while until like around 4 o'clock. So like I said, they had me washed down with those cloths and everything, so it was all prepped, it gives you less of like a risk of getting an infection after you have the baby and everything. They had me pretty much just wait for a couple hours. They monitored my contractions, things like that. You know, we let everybody know we were having the baby. At the time, it was just me and Tynan that were there. And then, like I said, around like 4 or so, they took us back into the OR to go ahead and get started. So at first, it was just me that they took back. Tynan had to put on like these special, what kind of look like scrubs and stuff. Just to make sure that he wasn't bringing any bacteria and stuff in to the OR while they were doing the surgery. So they were getting him ready, and then they took me in and they had me sit down with like the anesthesiologist who got me set up and gave me my spinal block. Once they gave me my spinal block and everything, they pretty much just lay it down on this big table. They like strapped on your arms, which is totally crazy, but I guess just that way so you don't like jerk or anything. They put up this huge curtain in between you and your stomach so you can't see. Don't cry, it's okay. It's totally okay. So you can't see what's going on the other side, because I'm sure that would freak a lot of people out. It would freak me out if I could see it, so I really don't want to. And they get you, you know, set up to monitor your vitals and everything during the surgery to make sure that everything's going okay. And then they got all of that good stuff started, and it actually, you know, the C-section itself isn't too bad. It doesn't really hurt too much. It just kind of feels like somebody's pulling around. It's just really a weird feeling. And everything was good. You know, they took her out, and he said, "You got a big baby here." She was 8 pounds and 9 ounces, which is pretty big, but TJ was 9'6", so she wasn't quite as big as that, but she was a chunky little monkey. And they took her, you know, they got her all cleaned up. They got her weight and stuff. They suctioned out her nose and her mouth, because at first, when they're very first born, they have kind of a lot of mucus and stuff still like in their nose and their mouth from being inside you. So they have to suction all that out so the baby could breathe and things. So they did that, and they got her little diaper and her hat on her and everything. And they, you know, brought her over to me for me to see and stuff when they were stitching me up and finishing the surgery. Everything like that. So, I mean, that whole end of it went, you know, fine. But then they went ahead and they moved us to the recovery room. And they took me in there. And initially they got my vitals and everything. And the nurse was just hanging out there, you know, checking on us. Okay, I gotta take a break, guys. I gotta feed this little lady. And then I'll be right back. Right, I'm back. And she's out like a light, so I'm sure she'll probably stay asleep for the rest of this. She typically sleeps for a while after she's fed and everything. So back to where I was. After the surgery, they were moving us into the recovery room. And you have a nurse there with you for a little while just to monitor your vitals and things like that. So at that point, that's what they were doing. Tynan's sister had actually came in at that point just to see us and everything like that. So she was there. She was talking to Tynan. And I was holding the baby. They gave her to me to go ahead and try to feed her for the first time. So when they did that, I was initially laying flat like this on the bed, and we moved it up so I could sit kind of at like a slant to be able to go ahead and try to breastfeed her a little bit easier. So my blood pressure dropped immediately from when it was 250/27. She called the doctor. She let him know. She said, you know, her blood pressure just dropped. What do you want me to do? He said, go ahead and give her epinephrine. So they gave me a little bit of that to kind of, I guess, get my heart, like jumpstart my heart, get it kind of beating a little bit better, everything like that, and they laid me back down immediately. So she stayed with me for a couple of minutes. They were taking my blood pressure. I don't know, it seemed like every freaking minute that machine was going off, but just monitoring me. And then after, I'd say probably like 10 minutes or so, they went ahead and they sat me back up again to go ahead and try to feed her because she was getting pretty hungry. And when they did that, my blood pressure dropped again to 60/33. So she went ahead, she called the doctor, and he initially said, you know, he thought it was just from the spinal block and that it was nothing to worry about. And I was actually on the phone with my mom at this point. She had called just to see, you know, how the surgery went, how I was feeling, everything like that. And I was explaining the situation to her, and she was very worked up, you know, because she was in a completely different location than me. She had like no control over the situation. She wasn't there to know what was going on, but you know, she knew that that totally wasn't normal. So she said, you know, it's not from a spinal block. Let me talk to somebody, you know how moms are. But the nurse that I had, she was phenomenal. Her name was Karen. She was awesome. But she went ahead and she called the other doctor that was there, the doctor that had actually done my C-section. And he came into the room. He just kind of talked to me a little bit, and he explained to me, he said, you're hemorrhaging. Postpartum hemorrhage is what I had. He said, so we're going to have to go ahead and take you back and get you into kind of like an exploratory surgery to find out where and fix it. And everything just happened so quick. I was just, at that point, I was just really worked up. I was crying. I was just sweating, I think. Not because it was hot, but I think because of my fluctuation in blood pressure and with everything going on. They took the baby off of me. Tynan went ahead and he was taking his sister out to the car and everything. So he wasn't in the room for any of this at that point in time. So he didn't even know, that I'd gotten that bad so quickly. He was walking her out. She was getting ready to leave and everything like that. And so they took me back within a couple of minutes. They were sending me back into the OR room to get the other surgery. And this time they got me prepped with the anesthesiologist who they just went ahead and put me under for this surgery. So they were getting me prepped with him, and they went ahead, they found Tynan, and they explained the situation and everything to him. He'd come back up from, walking out with his sister. And he had the baby the entire time all this happened. So they took me back in for the second surgery for the hemorrhage, and this surgery took, from what I understand, a very long time, a couple of hours. And I mean, I was out for all of it. I don't remember any of it, but that's what my husband said it did. It took a while. It was pretty scary. So I didn't get to see him for a couple of hours until I actually woke up. They moved me to recovery in the CCU, and they kept me there overnight just to kind of monitor me and keep an eye on me. I actually ended up losing around 2 liters of blood, so I lost a ton of blood. They gave me 4 blood transfusions, and they gave me so much fluid. Like, I thought I was swollen before, but at that point I was swollen up like a balloon. Like, my face was swollen so bad, my eyes were like almost swollen shut. I didn't even look like myself. It was so crazy. But he came up just to visit me for a little bit because the baby was back over. They were back over in like the room where I would be going the next day, provided everything went well and stuff like that. So he came over just to check up on me and visit with me for a little bit, but then he had to go back just to be with the baby and everything. And pretty much that night I slept a ton. Besides, they came in about every hour. They just push on your stomach, on your uterus and everything, just to check on it, make sure it's going down in size, check, see how you're bleeding. I had those little like compression thingies on my legs, and it's just this thing that pretty much squeezes your leg every so often just to make sure that you don't develop any blood clots or anything if you're just laying flat. And they went ahead and they just kept a catheter and things in me for the first night. So probably around like 7 o'clock in the morning, the shifts changed, a new nurse came in and everything like that, and then they told me finally that I was stable enough to go ahead and move back in the room, just the regular recovery room, and finally get to be with my baby and everything like that. So they went ahead and they brought a wheelchair in for me, and I had 2 nurses that helped me stand up for the first time, which is horrible. It hurts so badly to stand up for the first time when you just start bleeding. It's very, a very graphic thing, honestly. But they moved me from the bed to the wheelchair, and then they took me to the other unit just to be with the baby and everything like that. And that was awesome. She took a bottle the entire night, but she still breastfed really well whenever I finally got to be there with her. And then the rest of that day was just fairly common. They had the nurses coming in. They checked my vitals very often. I think about every 2 hours. At first I had my blood taken about every 2 hours. They wanted to check before I went home to make sure that my levels were stable enough, my blood levels, make sure I had enough blood in my body before they did send me home. So they had someone coming in to take my blood every so often just to kind of monitor that. And then my vitals to check my blood pressure, my pulse, everything like that. But besides that, I mean, it was just your normal hospital stay. In total, I think we were there for, I think it was the 12th? No. I don't know what day it was that we went home. We were there for about 2 or 3 days in total. Dang. Honest to God, I can't remember what day it was that we went home. But it was about 2 or 3 days worth of stay. The first day that I was in the hospital, they kept the catheter in. You stay in the bed. You don't really get up and move around or anything because I did have a C-section. You just pretty much stay in the bed. They give you your pain medicine, stuff like that. And then around the second day or so, in my case, they came in and they took the catheter out. They had me, the very first night, they had me walk down just the hallway with the nurses just to get up and move around just a little bit. But the second day they went ahead, they took out my catheter and everything like that, and they had me just like get up and go to the bathroom by myself throughout the day. They wanted me to walk down the hallway, just kind of get moving a little bit more, and they finally took off those compression things on my legs at that point because I was up and I was moving around a little bit. So this entire process was a little bit different for me. I had a JP drain in the entire time that I was there. So for those of you who don't know what that is, like any normal person, it was like this. I had kind of like this itty bitty hole like in my stomach, well, my pelvic region, whatever, and it is just pretty much this long tube and a drain. And it was draining blood out of my pelvic cavity because I still had bleeding. They weren't necessarily sure where from, but they were doing that in order to get a little bit of that bleeding out of there. They wanted to make sure, they were monitoring how much blood it was filling up with, and based off of that was when they decided to send me home, or if they were going to send me home, what they were going to do with me. But the bleeding did just clear up on its own. And so on the very last day that we were there, they went ahead and they removed that JP drain before I finally got to go home. And it actually, like, they didn't put me to sleep or anything like that. They just kind of came in and they pulled the tube right out of my stomach. It was super freaky, but it didn't hurt. I thought for sure it was going to be hurt. Like, I spent days just thinking about how bad that was going to hurt me. So it wasn't bad at all. It just felt really freaky, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And then they got me set up and everything, you know, and we got to take the baby home. She was doing great. Everything was completely normal with her. She was gaining weight well, she lost a little bit of weight, but pretty much she gained almost all of it back by the time we left the hospital. Jeez. So she was doing awesome. And then we went home, and the first day was okay. The second day I started feeling super weird. I had a little bit of a fever, and I was just feeling really drained. I was feeling like I had absolutely no energy at all, which obviously you're a new mom, you have changes to your sleep and things like that, but this didn't feel like that. This felt not right. I was very dizzy. I was very, very pale. I had dark, like, sunken bags under my eyes. And so after 2 days of being home, we finally made the decision on the third day in the morning. We went back to the hospital. And when we got there, my blood pressure was super high. It was like 140/90. My pulse was skyrocketed through the roof. My pulse was around like 130, 140, which typically this entire time it had been between like 100 and 120. I had tachycardia the very last couple of months through my pregnancy, and it's just something that has been happening, but it was higher than what it typically is. I did have a fever and everything, so initially we went into just the ER, and I met with the ER doctors. They took so much blood, it was unreal. They did blood cultures, they tested for everything like that, just to make sure everything was fine. They said, you know, we're going to take you and we're going to get you a CT scan. So I got the CT scan. I had to drink that dye, so I wasn't able to breastfeed for 2 days, which is another interesting story. But it took a little while for the results and everything to come back from that. They did a chest x-ray too. And then the doctor came in and she talked to me and she said, it looks like you have a blood clot on your lung. and we can't be for sure if it's just the dye or if it's a blood clot until we do another test. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to admit you. We're going to monitor your heart rate and everything overnight. And so they got me set up and everything. It took probably like another hour or two to go ahead and admit us. And then they put me up on just the woman's floor in the hospital, and they put me on cardiac monitors. I met with another doctor who came in. They said in the morning, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do an echocardiogram to find out, you know, what's going on with your heart and everything like that. So overnight I was on all of these monitors. They were just, you know, really watching me closely, stuff like that. And then in the morning I met with another doctor. She came in and she said, we are going to go ahead and call your OB, the doctor that did my surgery. We're going to call him because it looks like you still have some bleeding in your pelvic cavity, which is the reason why I had the JP drain in when I left the hospital. So at that point, I was done with the hospital doctors, the regular hospital doctors, and I was back with my OB. So he came back in and saw me and everything. I was, at that point, my blood levels were not good. I was very anemic, so they gave me 2 more blood transfusions, and they gave me more fluids. And they also got me started on IV antibiotics just to prevent like a postpartum infection in my uterus or anything like that. So this time I was in the hospital for a total of 3 days, and they just pretty much monitored me. They monitored my bleeding and things. The OB talked to me and they said, you know, they didn't think that the bleeding was significant. They thought that the bleeding cleared up and had went away on its own. They didn't end up doing the echocardiogram, and they didn't end up doing the other test about the clot. I think a lot of things just kind of got between the 2 doctors and the different opinions. I think a lot of things got kind of miscued, because my OB said they did not think at all that there was a blood clot on my lung. They thought that it was just from the dye. And the echocardiogram, they thought that my pulse was high, attributed to the fact that I was very anemic. So even after the blood transfusions, they gave me the IV antibiotics for the entire course of the time that I was there up until the last day, just to prevent infection. I didn't necessarily have one, but they did not want one to start. So the very last day that I was there, my pulse had went down a little bit. It was finally under 100. It was like 98, 99, somewhere right around that range. And I did talk to the doctor before I left and everything. They said follow up with your regular PCP and have them go ahead and kind of monitor that a little bit more closely and do the echocardiogram. So the whole thing was just like a very scary experience. Nobody ever gave me a real definite reason of what happened, like why I was there the second time, what caused me to lose that much blood, anything like that. Still to this day, I'm like uncomfortable and anxious with being home. I do have an appointment to check on my heart and my pulse, my heart rate, everything like that. Find out why it's still tachycardic, because it still has been running higher. It hasn't gotten any better even after the blood transfusions. So I have that appointment coming up in about like a week or 2, and hopefully after that it makes me a lot more comfortable. I've definitely had like I'd say maybe like a little bit of postpartum depression, but definitely like anxiety. I've had anxiety so bad. I'm just so afraid to like get sick and have to go back to the hospital. Everything that happened just happened really quickly, and it wasn't like the ideal experience that I wanted to have. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention, when they went in and they did my surgery for the hemorrhage, I had a blood clot on my ovary, my left ovary. So they removed my left ovary and my left tube, which is something that's also, I don't know, just kind of depressing. It wasn't the situation that I wanted it to be. Odds are we probably are not going to have any more children. This is my second really difficult delivery. My son's was very bad. When I had him, I had a lot of issues, and if you guys want to see a video on that, I can definitely for sure make one. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I mean, I'm happy that she's here, and I'm happy that she's totally healthy. I mean, she's doing great. She's 9 pounds and 12 ounces now. She is actually going to be a month old here in a couple of days on the 8th of this month, so that's awesome, and I love her to death. Things have been okay with the kids. TJ started school, and they actually have adjusted really, really well to her. They did a lot better than I thought they were going to do. And it's been okay. She's not that bad of a sleeper. She loves to sleep with people. She has a hard time sleeping by herself, so that's the only thing that I would say has been difficult. But I mean, she's a newborn, so that's to be expected. I love to snuggle with her. Sometimes it's hard for me to sleep because it makes me nervous. I'm just afraid that something's going to happen to her, you know. But I definitely wish things would have just been different with my delivery. There's nothing you can do to prevent it. I mean, thank God that we're alive, because a postpartum hemorrhage is actually something that's very serious. And I do a lot of reading on Google, which I probably shouldn't do because it stresses you out and you think you have things that you don't have, and you read all the stuff that you shouldn't read. I'm not a doctor. I shouldn't be, you know, reading anything about my medical stuff online. But I guess a postpartum hemorrhage is like one of the leading causes of maternal death in the United States. So I mean, I'm very thankful that I was in the hospital and I had a good team of people, a great nurse and a great doctor who knew what was happening and got it taken care of immediately before anything worse could have happened. And I'm thankful that they took the care for me that they did. And the second time I was in the hospital, I had a great team of nurses. They really did. I just felt uncomfortable with the lack of, you know, answers. And so that's kind of why I've been astray, why I haven't been here. The last couple of months of my pregnancy, I quit filming. I actually film everything from my phone. And so my phone had broke, so I was waiting to get another one that's suitable for vlogging on. And what I'm vlogging on right now is just the Samsung Galaxy 6. So it's not like it's top notch or anything, but it's good enough to film a video and post it for you guys. Hopefully you understand. I definitely don't have, you know, all this money going around to go out and buy like a good vlogging camera or anything yet, you know. Just for right now, I'm just starting my channel, like, got the phone. If everything goes okay and, you know, I mean, I start getting new subscribers and everything eventually, definitely I'm going to go ahead and get a camera and stuff, but for right now, that's what I'm vlogging with. And that's why I didn't film the last couple of months of my pregnancy, was just because I didn't have something that was good quality to go ahead and vlog on. But now finally, I've been feeling like semi-decent since we've been home. I do every now and then, just because of my heart rate and my pulse, everything like that, sometimes I'll be up moving around doing stuff, cleaning and that, and I'll just get real dizzy. I'll have to stop and sit down. So that's the only thing that's been worrisome for me. But like I said, I have that appointment coming up, and hopefully, you know, get good answers and good results there. So that is it. That's the end of my crazy, weird birth story. Thank you guys for sitting here and listening to me talk and ramble on. If I sound like a total loser, I haven't filmed anything, talked to a camera or anything in a couple of months, so it feels a little bit weird, I guess. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. You guys are awesome, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys!